Sultan. When I was a boy in Georgia, I almost drowned, you know, at the old swimming hole, and some fellows pulled me out, and they took me home, told my grandmother what happened, and of course I had to pay the penalty for that. And she later told me, she gave me some strict orders: don't you go near that water till you learn how to swim. And I was wondering how am I going to learn to swim without going in the water. So Sandusky High showed me, you know. They graduated me without knowing how to swim. But anyway, got involved in sports in Sandusky High. And this one, I think this was the heartbreaker. My sophomore year, I went into my sophomore year. It was too late for football, and I worked clean office down at Clay Products. Then my junior year, I went out for football. I didn't have the technique that the coach wanted me to show. I was hitting the sled, hitting it. I was hitting it. And my coach was, and we all know him, Vic Malinowski, outstanding coach at Sandusky High. And I was hitting, and he said, Darden, you got to get down lower. You're not down low enough. And I'm hitting it with all my 118 pounds. I'm hitting it, and I'm hitting it, and I'm hitting it. He said, Darden, you got to get down lower. I bet you if there was a watermelon down there, you'd get it. Well, at that point, I got up, I turned around, and I started walking towards the locker room. The same thing that I had been exposed to in the South and had been subjected to, I found here. So when I went into the locker room, I heard this noise behind me, and the one gentleman behind me, one classmate, I'll never forget him, Tulsa Ordway. I don't know where he is, but he's indelibly etched in my mind. Tulsa Ordway had quit. He had walked off with me. And behind Tulsa, there was 14 other players, black and white. 14 players, well, there was 13 others. 14, I made the 14. 14 players walked off the field after they heard that remark, black and white. It was still up there. And I set out the football season. I said, well, I'll just wait to go out for basketball. I love basketball anyway. So I went out for basketball, not realizing the same guy coaching football was coaching basketball. So what I did was played intramural. I played intramural ball. Had a lot of fun. We had our team, I don't know what we named it, but we did our thing, you know. So I didn't participate after that, simply because I allowed those artificial barriers to stand in the way. In retrospective view, I should have done something differently, but when you're a child, you think like a child. And one of the things about high school, I heard Sister Farrar mention no cafeteria. Well, I was at Adams, and we did not have a cafeteria. I lived at the corner of Depot and Hayes, 802 South Depot, right across from, used to be American Crane. And we would walk from Adams to home for lunch each day. We walk each day for lunch. And if you didn't care to walk, I mean, you didn't care to eat. We didn't have to if it wasn't for the Jim Crow society we were in, because 10-cent store on the corner, Nice's, they had a counter. We heard about Dr. Martin Luther King and their sit-ins in North Carolina and so forth, because the people were not allowed to eat at the diamond 10-cent store, what do they call it, diamond 10 or nice little press, yeah. We had eating places downtown, but we couldn't go in there and eat. We couldn't go in there. Nice's, we just couldn't, they just wouldn't serve us, wouldn't serve us. So we had to go home if you wanted to eat. That's the kind of society that I found here when I came to Sandusky. Coming out of a real, I'd say, staunch Jim Crow society, I came here and I found it was still Jim Crow, but it was more of a subtle type of Jim Crowism. And as I lived and I saw things begin to change and things continue to change, and even right now, things are still changing. Things have changed, so we have come a long way as a black nation, and we see things still changing now. And I'm hoping, praying that it will continue to change, and I know it will. But one of the things that I'm concerned about is that as black people, we don't cause it to reverse. And that's one of the things that we have to be careful, very, very careful of. I saw that side of the picture also in Georgia. When they integrated the hospitals in Georgia was completely separated, just like everything else was. And they would put you in a section, put whites in another section. Then when they integrated, they would put you in a room with a white person. My great aunt, who was a starch bigot, she was black. You ever seen a black bigot? Well, there's some. My great aunt was put in the room, and she was in there, and they brought this white lady in and put her in the room with my great aunt. And my great aunt had a fit. My great aunt had a fit. Get her out of this room, take her out of this room. They said, well, we're going to put a curtain between. She said, that curtain's not good enough. Take her out. Take her out. So it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street, you know. We know what has been done, and you can't undo what has been done. But together we can make it better. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now we're going to open up for a couple of questions from our audience here. So you might want to ask the questions for all our panels. Okay. Mr. Love.
Tom, let's go back to basketball because I kind of remember something different. Maybe I'm wrong and you can correct me. But you were playing center against a sophomore. You were playing rings around him. Vic Malinowski told you, I think told you, that you were a better player, but this junior would be here next year, so they were going to keep that junior and play him. Am I mistaken?
When I was out for basketball, Vic Malinowski was the varsity coach. Catherine was the JV coach. Your brother Gene.
Yes, and you're behind me.
Yeah, your brother Gene played behind me. Ernie Lemons and myself were supposed to be on the first team. No, Carl, I'm with you now. Carl, hold on. There was two. Jim Hildebrand.
Yes.
And Laverne Ward.
JV.
Yeah, they were JV. Malinowski told me that they would be there after I was gone. So he would not play me, but he moved them up. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Jim Hildebrand and Laverne Ward, was exceptional freshmen. They moved up to the JV, and they were really ahead of the other members on the JV team. And Vic Malinowski wanted to move them in to the varsity substitute, which would completely erase me, because he knew it after another year I would be gone anyway. But what happened, when that took place, well, because I left before another year, I left at that point. And that's when I went with the intramural team. You're absolutely right, Dan. You're absolutely right.
We have a young man that wants to ask a question here.
What's the Jim Crow?
His question is, what is Jim Crow? Jim Crow.
Jim Crow, who was the young man?
What's that? What tell us your name, young man?
Jim Crow is being denied the things that you are entitled to simply because of the color of your skin. And someone else is being favored simply because of the color of their skin.
Want an example? Okay, like you want to go over there and get a pop, okay? But you can't go because you're black, okay? But there's someone, Mackenzie right there, she could go right up there and they would give her a pop, but you can't go get a pop because you're black. That is Jim Crow, okay? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See,
Any more questions or history? You might have
that young man, you might mention to him, that terminology came about because Jim is customarily white and all crows are black.
Wow. I didn't know that. Thank you, Pastor. We have another question right here.
Pastor Darden, in looking at the future of Sandusky, can you talk a little bit about the MLK bus that we're going to put in Freedom Plaza and how the idea came about?
Oh, thank you, thank you. I was serving on the city commission, and this was during our bicentennial year, 1976. And 1975, Reverend Ashburn came to me, and you have to know Reverend Ashburn to really appreciate his approach. He says, "Tom, we got to do something." He says, next year is bicentennial, and the white community is planning all kinds of events, and we're not doing anything. He says, we got to do something. He said, we need to plan something for Dr. Martin Luther King. So we got busy, just a group of people he got together. We got busy and we planned Martin Luther King Day celebration, January 1976. We had a young man from Southern Christian Leadership, Tyrone Brooks, to come. Young lady from Cleveland, Barbara Cathy, television personality, to come. She spoke in the morning, and the first meeting was held at Robinson Temple over on Jackson Street. And the evening meeting was held at Jackson Junior High, where Tyrone Brooks spoke. It was well attended. It went well. Reverend Ashburn was excited, and about 2 weeks later, he came to me and he said, we talk almost every day because we only lived a couple of doors apart. And he came to me and he said, you know, it would be a wonderful thing if we would put a bust of Dr. King downtown. So you're on the city commission, maybe you can approach the city and get permission to put the bus downtown. I said, okay, I'll be happy to do that. And he said, well, in the meantime, I'll do some checking to see just what it would cost. And he did. And he came back and he told me that the cost was going to be $460. And we both agreed that that was certainly beyond us. There's no way we could get $460 together. So we put it on the back burner. And it remained on the back burner for about 41 years, really. Last year, Mrs. Hendricks, Brunel, Hendrickson, she came to me and she had an idea that we wanted to do something to remember the pioneers. And she referred to me as a pioneer. And my mind went back to the 49 gold rush, you know. So anyway, she said we want to organize something to show appreciation for the pioneers, and we did. We had the Pioneer Committee, a group of people got together, and the rest is history. We had the celebration in October. And sitting there, as I perused the crowd, I said, now what in the world are we going to do with the surplus money? You know, I just was at a loss as to what we could do with it. And I was asked to speak, and I don't know, I really do not know, it just had to be the work of the Lord, I would imagine, because when I got up to speak, I made my expression, and then I think I said to Sister Hendrickson, or maybe to Sister Ashburn, I said, if there's any money left after this affair is ended, let us take the net amount